So Richard previously used Garth Erasmus' work to speak about texture. I am now going to use Garth Erasmus' work and Nobukho Nqaba's work to talk about shape. If you look at these two works comparatively, you will see that they are quite different. The one is a mixed media work and the other work is a photograph. Firstly, we'll be looking at Garth Erasmus' work. So when we talk about shape, we will talk about geometric shapes as well as organic shapes. So geometric shapes are the shapes that we know: triangles, rectangles, squares, circles. It's the shapes we kind of learned as we were kids. Organic shapes are shapes of leaves or shapes that are ever changing, shapes that can't necessarily be defined. So if you look at Garth Erasmus' work, when I look at shape, I like to see, are there shapes that I easily can identify? So over here you can see three strong shapes of rectangles. You can see one rectangle over here, another one over here, and a third one over here. Often in an artwork you would call this a triptych. You can also see over here there are more rectangular shapes where the artists use collage and paper to create various rectangular shapes. Over here you would see maybe an oval shape of a face, another more oval shape of a face. But when it comes to shapes, shapes are also, when they have shades and textures in them, they can start to look quite three-dimensional, although they are flat. And that over here, you'd call it a form. As soon as a shape has volume and shading in it and tone, it starts to become a form, a three-dimensional looking object. So although it's flat, it has form and body. If you look over here at Nobukho's work, in this you would see that it's more of an organic shape. It's not necessarily a shape that we could say it's a rectangle or a circle or a square. Although in the finer details of the print of the bag, you would see various tiny shapes. You would see lots and lots of rectangles and squares in the detail of this work. It's interesting to think of the original object. This object would be a kind of like a square bag. And in the way that the artist has used these bags and manipulated this geometric shape, it becomes organic in the way that it creates this movement, in the way that she's wearing these bags almost in a costume-like fashion. This has a more three-dimensional effect, and that's because of the lighting and the way that they took the photograph. So you can see the darker shade comes from the right hand side of this work, and the lighter shades, the light was maybe on the left hand side, and that gives this work the three-dimensional feeling. And this photograph, you'll see it was photographed possibly in a studio, which also gives that feeling of three-dimensionality.